Hey guys, and welcome back. I'm Rachel O'Leary and it's time for a species spotlight, and we're outside by some of my tubs today in order to talk about a plant. Now this plant is invasive in many countries and in a large part of the United States. However, it's very useful for summer tubbing. So I thought today we would talk about water hyacinth, how it grows, why it's invasive, and how it's useful for us as hobbyists where it's legal to have. So let's get started. Now this plant here is water hyacinth, and there's a few different types, but the most common one looks like this, and it has broad, glossy leaves that are sort of oval in shape, and then sort of bulbous stalks. And when it flowers, it sends up a single spike that can get a bunch of really beautiful light purple flowers. It's one of the fastest growing plants known, sending out runners, which then create daughter plants. As you can see here, it sends out a stalk, and then this is a daughter plant. And one of the reasons that it's so dangerous and invasive is that it can be pollinated to spread like this either through bees or through self-cloning. And because it can self-clone and because it grows so rapidly, it can quickly cover the surface of most waterways. And while this sounds like a good thing, this fast growth can choke out the surface of waterways, and which can lead to slowing down a flow, which can be very detrimental to the fish. The natural sort of decaying plant matter that sinks down can reduce the oxygen available, killing fish and turtles, and it blocks out the light for native plants, which can cause them to die. So this is a real problem. That being said, I find this plant to be exceptionally useful in summer tubbing for a few reasons. One of which is that it propagates so quickly, covers the surface. It has these really super long roots, which I'll show you in a second, which absorb a ton of nutrients as it's growing so quickly, and provide a wonderful spawning mop for fish. They're actually edible, and in some countries are used as a food source, as well as a composting source for agriculture. Now most of these are probably means that they came up with to deal with the invasive nature, all of which are dealt with in a few different ways. There's chemicals that are used, there's manual removal, and they've actually introduced weevils in some places in order to try and combat this plant. Now it is completely banned in Europe and banned in a lot of US states and in a lot of countries, but it is legal where I am and I use it every year. Let me show you why. As I mentioned, this plant has really long trailing roots. Now this one's, oh, I just broke off the daughter plant. This one's only been in here a few weeks and already the roots are exceptionally long. Now this is great for our summer tubbing because this provides a really excellent mop for fish to lay eggs in, places for the fry to hide, and does a lot for nutrient uptake in bins. You could see though how it would be problematic for boat props. And again, this is how it was connected to the mother plant. And you can see that this daughter plant is already growing quite rapidly and sending out its own stalk to create more. By the end of the season, this plant will cover the entire surface of my pond, and in fact, I often have to remove some so that it doesn't choke out the light leading to my lilies. But again, it's very useful as a spawning mop for my fish, as you can see. The fish readily swim through those roots, and really, it's just extremely useful. So, now some other alternatives to this sort of plant are things like parrot's feather, water lettuce, or even creeping jenny, which sends down tons of aerial roots into the water when grown along the surface. So if you don't have access to this plant, the vast majority of surface floating plants will work quite well and send out a ton of roots, including a lot of the various marginals that we use. Things like my Louisiana iris send out massive roots, so you certainly don't need this plant in order to have success breeding fish outdoors. Now another thing that makes this plant so versatile is that it can take a massively wide range of temperatures, all the way down in the 50s up to the mid-90s, and it can even take some low-level salinity. That makes it incredibly hardy and difficult to kill. which for my purposes makes it really useful, but you can see how that can also contribute to its invasive status. I've added it to almost every tub out here in the greenhouse just for those long roots for the fry to breed in, and it's working really well. I have fry in almost every tub now, which I'll hope to update you guys on sometime soon. One of my favorite alternatives to it is this sensitive plant. Sensitive plant grows these long roots as well, but stays right up at the surface and is not at all invasive. It's a really cool plant. Let me know below if you'd like me to do a species spotlight on that one in the future. You can see how much it's grown in this tub in particular. As always, thank you guys for your continued support. Let me know down below if you'd like to see more spotlights on the various plants that I utilize in my bins. I think it's really useful, but with the season already being mid-swing, maybe it's not the best time. Make sure you stop by my Instagram and my Facebook, as well as my website, MsJinx.com, where you can find my upcoming speaking engagements and information on all things nano. As always, let me know below if you have any comments, suggestions, or questions.